Well, hello and welcome everybody to this Google Hangouts on Air live show. I'm Laura Rubenstein and I'm here with ReGina Concatelli. Hi, ReGina.
Hi, Laura. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited. This is the only time I've ever invited people to a hangout personally. I personally wrote emails to most everyone who is invited to this. And then maybe afterwards, depending on how we feel, we might just blast this out. But I wanted a special, very personalized time with you because I've gotten so much value out of your work with human design. And I visited this when you first did it back in, I don't know, early 2000 sometime, and then had this intuition to come back to it last year, and I've been keeping it kind of secret in just a small circle of friends, and I thought we'd expand it out to a little bit bigger circle of friends. And so I'm going to let you take over and do your thing and talk about how to have success and satisfaction in business by design.
Thank you, Laura, and welcome everyone, and welcome to Business Success and Satisfaction by Design. And I'm imagining that you're here listening because you just want to know maybe how to grow your business, how you can be more influential, how you can reach more your potential. What I found is that many people, go to coaches or coaching programs, or we're just inundated with like how to grow our business as entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, or even just to advance in your career. There's so much information out there, and what I feel that most people end up, I would say like 98% of the people end up feeling like they've done something wrong. Why isn't this working for me? It's working for other people, or it worked for the person in front of the room. So been into this study of human design, which is a typology, since 1999, and I have figured out why that doesn't work. While everything, each person is a unique individual, and so in this time together, we're going to get into the people that are here, those that ordered their human design chart, about what is their unique success formula. So if we can, I'd like to start the slideshows so people can kind of follow along.
That'd be great. Do you want to do it from your screen? Try that.
Let me try that.
Okay, and while you're getting that up, I wanted to let everybody know we do have a chat box on the watch screen, on the broadcast screen, and it's to the right, and you just have to enter your name, or you can enter your Twitter account, and I just typed in there, welcome everyone, and you're welcome to say hi and let us know we're here. If you have questions as we're going along, feel free to type them in there, and I'll do my best to, at the end, come up and have you answer them, ReGina. And I see we've got Love Guru Blair is on, and she's looking forward to this, and she's a manifestor.
Hi, Blair. Welcome. So how is that
All right, ReGina.
screen?
I don't see your screen, and we're losing bandwidth. So why don't I just put it up on my screen for y'all? Does that work? All right, so I have it up on my screen, ReGina.
Okay, well, let's get started. There's a lot of content here, and this is recorded, right?
This is recorded.
Laura, are you recording?
Yes, this is recorded. I guess you didn't hear me.
Okay. So there's one of the icons has the microphone X'd out. Is that, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine. It's all good.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Well, let's move to the next slide. Because what I was speaking about is that, we sign up for these coaching programs, we hear all these great marketing programs, we go to different types of development type information, and it's like it doesn't work for us. even myself to today, there's someone that I follow, a Penny Pierce, writes on intuition. And I just love her books, and I've devoured 2 of her 3 that she's written in the last few years. But as I go through and I read it, it's like my mind goes, oh, well, that wouldn't work for that kind of person, and that would work for that kind of person. So it's like, my point is that when you know who you are, it doesn't mean you can't ever go to these programs, but it means like you have to know who you are at your core and what really works for you. And next slide, please. And so what I have found through the human design system, it's a typology. So we've all heard of the Myers-Briggs or the DISC system, the Enneagram, and those types of typology have you answer questions. And yes, you can get value from them, but human design is a different kind of typology where it's based on your genetic blueprint. It's how does your life force energy work? And so it's really a look into authentically who you are. And through that, we get the strategies of how we can be more successful, how we can have, you know, more satisfaction in our lives. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about my background is I was in sales training and professional development professionally. And so I was in the coaching world back in the early 90s when it just started. And was going along with it. A few years later, I came into human design, which is 1999, and I was like, just the light bulbs went out. It's like, oh my God, this is a way to really help people who they are, because it completely transformed and changed my life because of who I thought I was. And I had been through all kinds of typology. I thought I knew myself, but when I found human design and I got the strategies for life, it made a huge difference. So my professional life was in sales and training and seminars and that whole industry. And in my personal life, I studied astrology and psychic development and, you know, all kinds of metaphysical alternative ways of healing. And so at this stage of my life, these 2 worlds have really just blended together. And I love sharing this information with you since 1996, I have been sharing and one-on-one and in groups, transformational information. That's a little bit about me. Next slide, please. So I found out when I was out of alignment, you know, it was like before I found human design, I used to pursue and push and go after. And I thought, I don't know where I got the idea. It was my responsibility to manage all these relationships, both personally and professionally. And we all know, like, you know, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, we can get totally whacked and out of alignment. And I think that the way that time is moving faster, it's like the edge of being of stress and our palms are sweating and we're short with our mate, or we cut the guy off in traffic, whatever it is. It's like we are on that edge right now, even more than ever before. Next slide. But what we want is we want to be in alignment and harmony, right? We all want more redwood trees and more yoga. Now, we're not talking about perfection here. There isn't a perfection. There's a progress. We can't always stand in the redwoods and do our yoga. But when we take that time, when we be in our own flow, we kind of take the redwood trees with us into our business. We take the breath, the yoga breath, into what we're doing in our everyday lives. Next slide, please. So why do you want to listen to this? Why do you want to know about your human design? There is so much potential for transformation here. Just the way that you perceive yourself and see how you're wired. As I mentioned before, these other typologies where you answer questions based on who you think you are. And there's information here. It's genetically wired. How does your life force work? Are you someone that can move really fast, or are you someone that really needs the space to move slow? All of this is revealed among hundreds of other things through your human design chart. And when you do start to find that alignment, you come more in contact. It just naturally happens with the people that can honor you, that you have to move fast or you have to move slow, or the right opportunities. And I want to take that word back, the right ones. They're correct for you. So when you have that perception, when you can see yourself, when you know who you are at your core, you line up with things that are in harmony with you. Next slide. So this is Beverly, corporate trainer. She sought me out, and it's like, you know, it was like from the first conversation, she immediately shifted her perspective and her behavior. I mean, this is available to you. This is my invitation for you, is to try this on and see if it doesn't shift the way you do your life personally and professionally. Next slide, please. So what are we going to do today? So I want to help. You'll have to keep hitting forward to get the next thing on there, Laura. There you go. So increase your self-awareness. Who are you at your core? How do you make body-centered decisions? Well, there's a concept. Whoever said we needed to make body-centered decisions? In school, we learned to sit down and be book smart. We didn't learn that our body actually has wisdom that the mind does not, unless you were raised in a very enlightened environment. So really can help you shift what kind of marketing efforts you're making to be more effective. And learn these strategies. How do you, your life energy is so precious. It's so precious. Where are you going to give it to? Where are you going to direct that energy to? So I would like to give you insights into all of that. I'm offering you insights into all of that in this presentation today. So human design is multi-layered. It comes from very ancient wisdom, but it has been synthesized into more of a modern day story and language. So the information that came from is the planets, the chakras, the Kabbalah, and particularly the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, which correlate directly to the 64 codons of your DNA. You can just type that into Google and find out that the I Ching and the DNA are correlated. It's a magical number, 64. But I'm not going to educate you on that, and you can see it could be it's a very complex system. But because I've been in it for so long, and because I like things really easy and simple, next slide, please. We're just going to look at the body graph, and everybody has their chart in front of them, hopefully, that I've sent to you. And so we're just going to look at, this is life force energy. What's colored in, what's not colored in, what's active, what am I reflecting, what am I giving off? It's really important to know, and you don't have to get into all the complexities of human design. The next slide, please. So we're going to start with type and strategy. So the names are the manifestor, the generator, the projector, and the reflector. The manifestor is here to initiate. They have their strategy to inform. The generator is here to build and sustain, and their strategy is wait to respond. The projector is here to guide others, and their strategy is wait to be invited. And the reflector, very rare, they are here to be the overseer. And so let's move forward on that. Each one of these has a different strategy, and they each have a different aura. So here you can see out of 100 people, one would be 1% reflector. The next unusual type is the manifestor, only 9%, projectors 22%, and then the generator and the manifesting generator, they both fall under the category of generator, but just a little bit of distinction there, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what the percentages are of people on the planet. Next one, please. So the biggest category or type is the generator and the manifesting generator, and their strategy is to respond to life. So when not initiating, not pursuing, does that mean you never initiate, you never pursue? Well, it depends on the situation. I think the best way to hold it in yourself is, am I responding to this? Because what happens is they get frustrated. So let's move on. So the generator is, they just plod along, doesn't mean, they've got the sustaining energy, they're going to make it all the way to the end. Next slide, please. Manifesting generator. Next, the manifesting generator, their engine is running. They are ready to go. If you're the driver and you've got a manifesting generator as a passenger, they will have their hand on the door handle ready to get out of the car before you've even put it into park. I mean, they are just, their energy is ready to go. So let's look at, what do you need to know if you're a manifesting generator now, or a generator? I'm just going to name just first names so that we kind of get a sense of this. The people that did sign up to get their chart. So Laura, Elizabeth, Jana, Priscilla, Susan, and myself, we're pure generators. And go ahead and do the next forward. So creative builders, here to sustain the energy. Get something started, and your generators and manifesting generators, they're going to carry it out. They're here to respond to life. That's how they know what they want. It's like the sacral center. It's the second chakra up from the bottom, and I'll show you that chart in just a minute. But it's pure sacral life force energy, and it responds. It has a juice for this or not. Do you want to play tennis? Do you want to go horseback riding? Do you like chocolate? It's like yes, no questions. It's all right there. The mind doesn't have to figure it out. So it's a big switch for generators and manifesting generators. However, they have the easiest time of really waking up to who they are by responding to life. So their life becomes more like a self-discovery. What is satisfying for my energy? It might be satisfying to stand there and do the dishes. It might be satisfying to run the vacuum cleaner. It might be satisfying to do all different kinds of things. It doesn't say, is this going to make me happy? That is not the question, generator. The question is, does this satisfy me? Is there pleasure in that? I'm helping a friend with something. Did I get pleasure from that? Was that satisfying for me? So the big, big leap is to surrender into not knowing. It's like, well, just because I always, like to do the dishes and now I don't, or I never liked doing the dishes and now I do. It's like the mind gets in there. Well, why is that? Why is that? And that's one question I'm going to invite you, if you're a generator and a manifesting generator, is to not ask why, but you have to trust that gut reaction. So next slide, please. So we have generators and manifesting generators. Next slide, please.
Working on it.
Okay. All right. So we got that. Remember, we saw the tortoise and we saw the red Ferrari. Well, I couldn't find the red Ferrari with the tortoise, but we got the hare. So it's the tortoise and the hare. Well, who's faster? Who's better? Generators and manifesting generators. That is not the question. It's who is the most self-aware. So if I'm a manifesting generator and I know that my energy can come on like a freight train, and I'm asked to come sit in this meeting, or I'm asked to get together with this volunteer group, it's like I'm going to talk to myself and I'm going to say, now take some breaths, come on pretty strong, and just get all the information. Because what happens with the manifesting generator, next slide please, is the manifesting generator can just go really, really fast, and they skip steps. The generator, they they kind of get their motor up and going, and they got a little bit of energy up and going, and we're going to do this step, and I got to read that first, and then I'm going to do that step. And the next, keep going, thank you. And so the manifesting generator, they look at something and go, oh, well, you don't need to do 1, 2, and 3. You can just skip right in and go to number 4. And so that may be true, but what happens and why we can't answer who gets to the finish line, the tortoise or the hare, is because you really want to know if you're skipping essential steps if you're a manifesting generator. So, and then there's one more comment on there. Actually, two more.
They're up. Can you see them?
I think there's two more. Oh, no, excuse me, you're right. I'm looking at a slide before. So generators need a little bit more energy. So I can talk to this. I mean, it's like I get going on something, and then I bounce the ball over to someone in my support system and say, okay, I got all of this done on this project. I need some energy. Like Laura and I working on this together, I only got so far, and I couldn't do any more until I talked to Laura because I had to have some energy come back to me. Manifesting generators, they can pretty much keep going on their own. So that's the majority of the planet, almost 70% generators and manifesting generators. Now let's look at the next major category, which is about 22%. Next slide, please, which is the projector. Now we had a lot of projectors ask for their charts. So we had Jan and Mary Teresa and Catherine and Kira and Lisa and Mary H. And so as a projector, little different thing, completely different energy. They don't have energy to sustain. They're the guide. They're more of a leader type. They authentically are here to kind of check in. They're absorbing what's going on around them, but boy, when they find out when the connection is right, when the recognition is right, they're really going to focus. So their aura works completely different. We can't change our aura. The generator aura takes everything in, and it just envelops everything, and they're very open, where the projector takes some of it in, and they're waiting to get invited, or they're waiting for someone to recognize them, and then they're going to focus in on it. And in that waiting time, both are important. They're standing there, and they're shining the light. Whether you want to go up and ask them to shine the light on you or not. And I highly recommend you get some really sweet projectors in your life, because they have a very different kind of insight. So next slide, please. They are natural leaders, guides for other people. And when they focus in on something, they can just, it's very intense. And so the projectors that are listening to this, I just want to remind you how intense your energy is. You don't have to give so much energy out. Just your presence, when it's correct, when you're connecting, when people have invited you in, or they've recognized you, and you just stand there and focus to them, just know that there's a lot of intensity. You don't have to be all energetic like the generators and the manifesting generators. There's two more keynotes here. So great talent for reading people, reading the environment, and so their strategy is wait to be invited. But on a day-to-day basis, that doesn't happen. So for projectors, it's learning how to feel into the subtle energies, such as, sitting into a meeting, or, going to the grocery store, or sitting with a group of friends for dinner. It's like, just notice when the energy is starting to come to you, versus, it might not be an official gold boss invitation, though those are really nice to have. They don't happen on a day-to-day basis. Excuse me. Okay, so now we get into the manifestor. So in the Western world, we were all raised and conditioned to think we are manifestors, but actually it's only like 8 or 9% of the people on the planet are manifestors, and they are here to take action. They're here to act. So next slide. They travel alone, and they it's not that they don't need support or want support. What they really want is for people to get out of their way so that they can impact and they can get into action. Next slide. So, their voice is very strong. If they're healthy and authentic, their voice is strong. Let me read. We had 3 manifestors. We had Deborah, Zach, and Elaine. And Blair, I guess, is on the call. I didn't get a request for her chart. Here to impact others. The more the better. Being on radio versus being one-on-one. Great for manifestors. They can initiate things. They can't sustain it. That's where they need support. One more. There's 2. So it's really important to know. There's one more after that. What kind of impact that you're making? Be aware, be conscious that you are having an impact. I have, for whatever reason, I have a lot of manifestors in my life. And when it's like, they like blow me away. It's like when I have a one-on-one conversation with them, it's like they are, especially when they're clear and conscious, they just really make a difference. I feel very blessed because I get a lot done because of the manifestors in my life. But the manifestors that are listening to this, I just invite you to be aware. It's kind of like the projector. You don't have to give out that much energy. You don't have the sustaining energy. So the energy that you give out, manifestors, should be to inform people. Well, what are you informing them? Well, you're informing them about what your needs are, or how you might have changed plans, or how you might offer to help them, or whatever the situation is that take the time to really consider who's all involved, who's in your circle of influence, and make sure they know that you've informed them about what's going on, or even ask them. And know that generators and projectors would love to be asked and invited into whatever you're doing, and that it has to come from you first. I could go on and on about the manifestors. I love working with them, but let's move on to the last type, which is very rare. As I said, 1%. Their strategy is to wait even longer than the projector. They're here to wait 29.5 days. How odd is that? So they're very connected to the moon, and they have all those centers are white. Next slide, please. So they're here as the judge. They're here taking in everything. Their aura, the reflector aura, is very much, it's samples. So they come in and they take a little taste. Next slide, please. And so they can get confused. They can really wonder who they are because they're so open and they take in everything around them. And they really change as the moon changes, as the planets change, their design changes. And so it might change for a couple of days, or it might change longer. So really for them is to be in touch with the moon and the cycles, and to watch that, to make sure that they get time alone every day. And they really need to have allies. They really, I just recently met a reflector who has been so busy and has neglected their friendships. And so, of course, my strategy for them is to, make the time for friends, because you're so changeable, and they have to wait so long, and they need support from others. But they are really the ticket taker, so to speak. It's like they really can feel the whole environment and then feed it back to us. Next slide. Any questions?
We do. We have several questions that I'd love for you to answer. So let me just, we have some nice chatting going on in the chat box, and anybody who has a question, if you didn't realize, there's a chat box right to the right of this broadcast on the on the broadcast page. So for if you're watching us live, we had some questions way back in the beginning I just wanted to get to as well. It was about the person you mentioned. Hang on. Penny Pierce.
Uh-huh.
Is that the author who wrote about intuition?
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh. She
it,
wrote, yeah.
uh
She
is
wrote Frequency and oh my gosh, I'm going blank right now, but yeah, she writes about developing your intuition.
great. And at some point, I don't know if this is the appropriate place, but can you recommend any good books for sales? Is one of the questions here.
Without no without I don't have enough information. I
Okay,
mean, I don't know how much you know about sales or
right.
who
Okay.
what who's the type I'm talking to.
The person who asked this question is Z Ruts, and I don't know your first name, but that's her little initials here today. But Blair had answered that you might answer that in today's talk about, how to use your design for sales and success. So we have other questions though. Let's see. Da, da, da. So Blair's asking, since generators need energy to keep going, does that mean they're more likely to be energy vampires?
No, no, and they don't necessarily need energy. What happens with generators is they kind of hit plateaus, and so because they need something else to respond to, so they are not necessarily energy vampires. If there was, that's some of the other types that are non-energy types that are more likely to be uh, vampires or borrow energy from others, and that would be the projector, the manifestor, and the reflector are
Yeah,
more likely to be that way.
being a generator, I find that, it's other people's energy is like a gas or a brake pedal for me. It's like if I say, well, do you want to do this with me? And they say yes, then it's like, okay, we're off and running. And if their energy is no or medium, I can't do anything. I'm not really taking their energy. It's more like it's just a release of the brake and application of the gas. Does that make sense? If it's a go,
Yeah, yeah. Because the most powerful motor is the sacral. And if you're a generator and you're healthy, then that motor is running 24/7. That's kind of like you're humming. You've got this motor running,
right?
if that answers that.
Yeah, and that was the main question we had, but we have some nice comments. It's nice that you're so supportive and appreciative of the manifestors in your life. And oh, and Z Ruts is Zach. Thanks for being here, Zach. Okay, so and if there's any other questions, please feel free to ask them. We'll come back for more questions as well at the very end. So we can keep going if you'd like.
Okay. Right. So what we just talked about was type and strategy, and how does that fit into the business world? How does that fit into your sales? I don't want to make a blanket statement. I say that you need to test it out, and according to your strategy. So if you're a generator and someone asked you to go check out this training, and you responded by being all excited and feeling really juicy about it, then you would go test that particular one out. It's not, you can't figure all that out in your head ahead of time, especially for generators. They have to respond to it. So to answer that question, you find out which sales training is correct for you based on response, your individual response. The whole
Yeah.
thing, it's like one size does not fit all. The projector, the same thing, to get invited. The manifestor, it's like, do you feel that, the pull to it? So just to answer that question blanket wise, you have to follow your strategy. That's how you enter into things correctly. So the next part that I want to share is, like, this is so key, is how do you make decisions? Human design, we call it inner authority. I call it your body wisdom. your inner truth. Next slide, please.
Okay, and we had a comment on that and a question. Could we back up just a half a second?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so Blair says she gets it. I realize that sometimes I get drained by generators always being on the go, and I don't try to keep up anymore.
Good.
So, and then Zach is asking, what's the relationship between a manifestor and a reflector?
Well, that would depend on the manifestor and the reflector. I mean, I can't blanket that. You know, it depends on how much definition the manifestor has. It depends on what kind of definition or what's colored in. Excuse me if I get into terminology here. So it depends on their particular chemistry when the two come together. I mean, I do a lot of connection types of sessions where we look at one person's design and we look at another person's design. It's super, super unique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know what I found very helpful when you worked with my mastermind group was to take a look at everybody's charts and really have you break it down to, you know, what is everybody's strength and what can we call upon each other for, given who we are, what we need. So yeah, I can see it's a very customized you know, process because not every reflector is the same. And given that the human design is so intricate, you know, with the 64 codons and the I Ching and the, you know, the chakras, that there, it really is a great individual map with some general overlays. Let's see. So, Zach, if you have a more specific question at some point, just type it in there and we'll come back to it. But let's get to what you were just saying, ReGina, about how do we make decisions, because I think that'll be very helpful for people.
Absolutely. And let me just add to this about, you know, what type goes, we could have, what type goes with what type. We could have 10 generators in the room and I could not give them all the same strategies. It's so individual. Not only that, it also depends on self-awareness. I mean, I have the potential, I have the roadmap to your highest potential in my hands. But if you don't want to make the changes or you don't want to test it out or you're in denial or whatever is going on in your life, it doesn't matter. People need to be aware of who they are. That's where the harmony comes from. That's when we match up. It's when we go, oh, I tend to blah, blah, blah. Or in the past, I usually do this. So I'm going to be more aware of that. So
Beautiful.
everything is self-awareness. Next slide.
Okay.
And again,
Whoops.
another slide. There you go.
Okay.
Next one. All right. So we've got several different kinds of inner authority. Half the people on the planet, straight out, 50% are solar plexus or emotional. That's how they make their decision, and I'll go into that. I think it's like 35% is pure sacral or gut response. Splenic is a smaller percentage than that. Heart center willpower, a less percentage, and on down identity center, sense of self, and the moon, sense of self. So those are very, very rare. Next slide. So I'm going to read off who is the solar plexus people that did ask for their chart so that I have that. Not everyone's on the call, but Deborah and Zach and Mary H. and Jan and Mary Teresa and Susan J. and Julianne and Susan D. are all emotional. So that center over on the right side is colored in for you. As soon as that is colored in, boom, you're emotional. Boom, you do not have clarity in the now. Boom, you need to take more time. So a projector that has this colored in would move very differently than a projector who does not have it colored in. So when I talked earlier about maybe you need to move slower than others. So what this is it's like your clarity comes over time. When you're faced with a decision, the in-laws are coming for the weekend, or we need you to start a new project, or you know, the little boy falls off this bike, whatever it is, it's like there's a rush of emotional energy that runs through you. And you might be really excited in the moment, or you might be really depressed or withdrawn. But eventually those keep moving and shifting. And what you're waiting for, and why you need time, is to get to clarity when the waters have calmed down. So it's like, for anyone that's solar plexus, is there is no clarity in the now. Your clarity comes, your truth is revealed over time. And you say, well, how much time? And I say, well, it depends on the decision. It depends on you. I mean, I've heard from people within the human design community, it took her months to decide whether to move from one state to another. So, it's like you can't be in a hurry. And so being around people that are solar plexus can be very irritating for other people that can move faster. If you don't understand that's the way they're wired. You could think, well, you're just being slow just to irritate me, but that's just the way. If they're being authentic to themselves, is they move with the flow and they watch the different moods and the different emotions. 50% of the people on the planet have that. Go ahead. Okay, so like 35% are sacral beings, so that gut reaction. It can respond right in the now. It answers to yes, no questions. Do you want to go for a hike? Would you start this project for me? Would you send me an email? Whatever the question is, yes, no questions. And as I mentioned earlier, this is so unusual. Generators, we were all told to go figure out your life from your head, to make a plan. We were told to make a plan and to figure out the Ben Franklin and what's the pros and what's the cons. I mean, that's the way that we were raised. And now we find out, well, the mind nowhere near has the information that the body does. And that sacral is very primitive. It's It doesn't have a lot of language like the throat does. It's very, very primitive. And so it's a Buddha way of living your life. And it takes a while to really get used to it and really tune into it, unless you're a very body-centered person. You do a lot of yoga, you've done a lot of dance, you've done a lot of therapy, something that really helped you connect to how you're feeling in your body and whether something gives you pleasure or not. Next one. Okay, so the spleen is in the now, and the spleen moves really fast, and it's really intense energy just in that moment. So I've watched people that have a splenic definition, and the people on the call, did I say who was sacral? If I didn't, so Laura and Elizabeth and Jana and Priscilla and myself are sacral generators. The splenic people are Lisa and Elaine. So when you're around someone that's aware of who they are and aware of this splenic energy, it's very intuitive. It functions in the now. It's a still, small voice, and it's very, very quiet. So for example, somebody was sharing with me that they lived on a country road, and they never put their seatbelt on until they got to the main road. But for whatever reason, one day they got in the car and they heard, put on your seatbelt. So since they were in tune with their human design, they put their seatbelt on. And they get up to the main road, and they get like a couple hundred feet down the main road, and there's a car accident in front of them. Now, nobody's hurt, everything's okay, but the spleen with the radar system to keep the body healthy sent the message, put your seatbelt on. It's very soft. It's really easy to ignore that. Put your seatbelt on, turn left, don't eat that, don't go in there, don't call them. Whatever that is, it's very, very faint. And if you have this colored in your chart, it's an awareness center. It's a bonus. You have your intuition is speaking to you, and you can trust it 24/7. It can come off pretty strong if that's your inner authority. And you don't have other centers playing out in that. It's a really strong in the moment, can be really, really intense energy, but it doesn't sustain. It doesn't have ongoing energy. It's just like in the now, this is what I'm doing. Okay, next one. So we have one person, I rarely even show this slide, but we have one person that does have the G center, or the center of identity, and that's Catherine. She said she couldn't be here, but she wanted to listen to the recording. It's a very unique way of making decisions. And it doesn't have a voice. It's, I've heard different descriptions of this. Like, some people will say they kind of just like feel it in their chest area, because it's that center of identity, the center of self, or the G center, has, like, they can feel like, lining up with something right through their chest, like just taking a direction. But the question is, will this make me happy? Or they need trusted advisors and people in their life, and they, hear themselves talk and hear how to make a decision. So you can't be in a hurry with that one. And next one. And none. We have one person that has that, and I rarely even show this slide again, and this is Kira. So she's got the two centers at the top colored in, which is the head and the ajna, but nothing down below the throat. And so we would call her a mental projector. And she doesn't have any inner authority. Her authority comes from her environment. So very different. So she would really want to be aware of her intuition. And Kira, this is not your chart. I got this off the internet. So it's very easy to get distracted and pulled off track, easy to, take other people's opinions as your truth. But what this is to really take your time and to feel into the environment. So this would take a while for this person to kind of feel into it. So with the right coaching and the right guidance, they can get that success formula wired in and anchored. So each of the centers has a different function. And, the head center, the ajna center, the throat, the G center, the heart center, the solar plexus, the sacral center, the root, and the splenic center. Just knowing these 9 centers can make such a huge difference. Say you've got a child, and your child has the solar plexus colored in, but you don't. That's the one over on the far right. So they're emotional, so they need more time. They need time to process their emotions. Some people process very quickly. I'm a quick processor. I don't have the emotional center colored in, and the way I'm wired, it's just like, boom, I move through stuff very quickly. So I've had to learn patience with being around people that, have emotional solar plexus. If I care about them and want to have time with them, I have to learn how to be patient, because they can't hurry. So there's a lot of love and self-acceptance and understanding that's available through the human design system that you're not going to find out anywhere else, that can really improve not just your professional relationships, but your personal relationships. So I'm going to stop for questions before we move ahead, because I'm going to talk about why we get tripped up on these.
We had a couple.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So if you have both emotional and sacral centers defined, does one take precedence?
Yes. If you have the solar plexus defined, that is your inner authority. So an example would be, you're out shopping and you see the item that you're looking for, and your sacral responds, but it's kind of a big purchase. So you're like, I think I'm going to sleep on that. Let's say you're looking for a car or something like that. It's like, you're not going to buy that in that moment, not if you're an emotional being. I've bought a car because I'm pure sacral. I've seen it, went, and purchased it, and my friends all freaked out on me. But when you've got the solar plexus, you really want to give it time. So anybody that has, whenever you look at anybody's chart and the solar plexus are colored in, that's their inner authority.
How about with the splenic and the sacral?
So the splenic and the sacral, it depends on how they're connected. So like for Laura's design, because I know it, Laura's design, she has that one little bar that goes across the branch, the channel of caring and nurturing that goes from the sacral center to the splenic center. And when I see people that have it directly connected, I find that they have a really hard time like separating it. And not that that's bad or wrong. It's just like, boom, the information is, the wires are connected, so the sacral center to the splenic center.
So,
However, based on, just let me finish this, based on textbook, if the sacral's colored in, it is the authority, and the splenic energy supports that.
yeah, it's very interesting to kind of decipher. It's not easy to. And we have a question of how do you use this in business? How does this apply? I mean, I find that I know when to, move forward with a client or when I really shouldn't if I'm paying attention with the sacral center. I know what products and services and tools to buy or people to hire using, um, my authority here. So do you want to speak a little bit more to how we use this for business?
Well, if you're the only one that knows about your design, then to answer that is pretty much how Laura states. I run all my business, all my decisions based on how my sacral feels, and I have developed my intuition over the years, and my intuition and my sacral always agree. They don't ever disagree. And I don't have the splenic center colored in, but I feel the energy. I feel into things. And this is what, there's an invitation to do that no matter what your type is, to start being more aware of your energy, but be aware of what energy you're taking on and what energy you're giving off. So in business, you would, make decisions. Like if you want to go to a workshop, it's like, if you feel totally turned on by that, then go. Or you get to it and you feel turned off and your energy's shutting down, then leave. I mean, it's really yes, no kind of questions. If you happen to know the person that you're working with and you have the gift of knowing what their design is, then that's a whole different conversation about, like I mentioned earlier, oh, that person, they're splenic. They can hurry, they can make decisions really quickly. And if I had someone that I worked with in my office and they had the splenic center colored in and I don't, I would defer to them on certain things where we would need to know immediately in the now some information. Or if I'm out for a hike with someone that has splenic energy and I don't, I'm like, which way do we go? It's like, it's up to you. You would sense that. So you can use it just if you just know it based on how you make your decisions, knowing your inner authority. And then there's a whole other layers as if you happen to know the people that know the other people's human design as well.
We did have one other question here, and it goes back to Zach's question where he was saying about the relationship between manifestors and reflectors, I believe. So if manifestors need to inform and reflectors are judges, um, perhaps there's a good way to for them to work together. Is there a recommendation or a correlation there?
Well, okay, if I just knew there was a reflector and that's all I knew about them and they worked in my office, I would engage them in conversations and I would ask them questions about, well, what do you think about that? Or what have
Mm,
you noticed? I would defer to them because they're the judge. They've sampled everything. They know the whole environment, and they have access to energy that I don't have. They have access to the frequency. They've sampled everything. So that would be one way in a professional environment to work with a reflector. And I would say, since we're already on the topic, the projector is the same thing. They're my
hmm.
go-to people. I'm like, well, what do you think about that? What would you do? How would you handle that?
Right.
And if I know their chart, I can get really specific with them and say, because I know there's like the mental projectors. I mean, they have an ability to process information mentally. There's like no way that I have that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a problem to solve. I would go to that projector to ask them to help me solve it.
Yep. That's awesome. So I know we're reaching the top of the hour in a few minutes. Do you want to, there may be people who have to go. I know you'll keep going with your information. Do you want to mention what might be a good next step? Should I show a slide on that?
Yeah, let's just go through the slides really quickly, what I have left there, just so I can keep going. All right, so here's the thing is, and you can keep going with the slide. The mind will step in if your inner authority is intuitive or a sacral response. Your mind is going to step in. It's going to tell you the opposite, and that's because that's the way we've been conditioned. So I can make it sound super, super easy, like, oh yeah, all you got to do is respond, or oh yeah, all you just got to wait for emotional clarity. You might have your emotional clarity, and your mind's going to go, what, are you nuts? So this is where the self-awareness is in here, and it's not that the mind is bad. We just have to be aware that the mind wants to be in control of our life, and the body knows a lot more than the mind ever will.
That's great.
So let's go on past the questions. Next one. Let's see. So my recommendation would be to have a private session with me and have your analysis done, and then do the consultation so that you can really anchor your success formula. You'll have it recorded. You'll know the particulars about your design. You know where the little cracks in the sidewalks are. You know when things are really working for you, and you can really anchor this for you if that's all you would do. But I would recommend that. And so what I've come to in my education and my own personal transformation is human design is the baseline. You have got to know who you are at your core. What's your role? How do you make decisions? How do you function in the world? Am I a manifestor and I need to inform, or am I a generator and I need to respond? That is so important, not to mention all the other information. Also within your human design is your emotional wiring, and that's the next piece that we need to know, is how do we act in intimate relationships. The next part is the pillar is about our intuitive and our psychic abilities. I have everyday energy tools that I provide for my clients and teaching them how to do that, as simple as some grounding. And the last piece, if you want to be a leader, which you already are, you wouldn't be on this call, is getting your communications courses lined up and really being able to articulate and to be able to influence and resolve conflict. And a lot of that comes from self-confidence when you know who you are. So next slide. So the starting point on all that, and my recommendation for the next is this offer. And if you go to my website, there's a blue button over in the right-hand corner, and when you click on that, it's get your personalized session with me. There's 2 sessions. You'll save $50 to put Laura, all lowercase, into the coupon code. Plus, I'll give you my Living Design Starter Kit, which you can, everything that I covered and even more, all the basic terminology. I keep things super, super simple. That is my gift to you as well. So you just go to the home page and click the blue button and put in Laura. So what you'll get with that, if you just want to go on to the next slide, I did talk about it a little bit, but you'll get it's a 2-part. You get your analysis, I give you the download, and you learn about your life lessons, your soul radiance, what's your soul purpose. You get that written and recorded. You get a personalized action steps on what I feel that you need to do to become more self-aware and get into your alignment. And then we do a one-on-one consultation where I just pull it all together. You get some coaching on that. You can really say that you know your success formula. Some of the people that have worked with me, some of you know Maria. She is just someone who works so hard. Oh my God, she's a pure sacral generator. Work, 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 work. And we just working together have just really shifted. She is just skyrocketed in very short amount of time. So a little bit of my rave reviews. And then one other is Birgit is a holistic practitioner, and she'd been in business for 6 years. And when we started working together, really shifted things for her. Not that she made more money, but she could actually enjoy her business. And so, with her, it was a very different strategy that I used with her that I used with Maria, because I coach you according to your design. Very different. They're both generators, but I coach them both very different. So everything, I do not have a cookie cutter approach. There is no one size that fits in my mind. And I take into consideration all the different parts of your design, and it just kind of speaks to me. And then I coach you according to what I'm hearing your human design tell me. And that might sound a little far out there for people, but that's how I do it. What's your next one? I would just invite you to jot down, what did you get? What did you hear in this conversation today? What did you hear in my invitation? And what are you going to do next differently? Like, what would you do more of, or what would you do less of? If you're emotional, maybe you say, I'm going to sleep an extra night on something, or I'm going to wait.
While people are answering that, I wanted to just chime in on what they're going to get and just reiterate, because it's so unique what you're offering. You have, everybody has their chart and they know the generalities, but what you do is you actually do a custom recording for people about their chart, so they don't have to spend the time on the phone with you. And once they've listened to that, then you do a coaching session on that analysis. So it's not just getting your chart kind of handed to you with a little bit of information about yourself. It's like, now what do you do next with this information? So this is I think this is just a great offer and a wonderful gift that people can give themselves by taking advantage of this. But in the meantime, people, I'd love to hear. I know we have some people leaving the call, but if you've gotten an aha insight, let's have you put that in the chat box, and feel free to stay a little bit longer. If you have questions, you can also put those in there. So I love this. I've gotten some ahas about other types of the other types of people, like the people who need to sleep on it. And yeah, I knew that, but now I know who they are. Um, I also can see that in them now and have an appreciation and a respect for that. So I can see how teams of people can use this. Can people use this offer for more than one person on their team, perhaps?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can order as many as you want.
That's
Yeah,
great.
thank you, Laura. It is very, very individualized. And I have to say, not bragging, I just have, I mean, I studied intuitive development for like 6, 7 years in the classroom. And I don't know how it happens, but your design just speaks to me. I embody it, and then I
Mhm.
feed it back to you. And so it is very, very specific of whatever, something will jump out of somebody's chart. And it's like, that's like, oh, okay, that's what they need to hear about. So it's a very personal and in-depth type of session.
And by the way, I put the link, there's a button just below this video on the broadcast page. I'll put it in the YouTube as well, for people to take advantage of it. So you can just click the link and use the code Laura. So you get your $50 off, which is hugely generous. Thank you so much, Regina, for doing that. I know it's just invaluable information if anybody's really wanting to step into that next level of personal development and effectiveness in their business and life. And to me, we lead a blended and connected lifestyle. So when you talk about how does this work in business, it's the same question. It's the same answer as how does this work in business as it works in life. It's you are who you are wherever you are, whether you're in your personal life or your business life. So take this information and start playing with it, as I know, Regina, you've consistently encouraged me to do. And I consistently do and come back to, and it's one of the few typing tools that I've ever done that with. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, is because because it made a difference, and it's something I keep coming back to and keeps informing me on so many different levels. And I love it for that. So thank you for the gift. And I hope everybody gets inspired to do it for themselves. It may just be the tool that gets you to the next level.
Absolutely. Living to our potential. It's like there's there's just so much there that can open our lives up in a different way, and the self-acceptance and the self-awareness. You can't put a price tag on knowing who you are.
It's true. And
That's all that we're here to do, is to
yeah,
develop the relationship with ourselves.
yeah. And it's also about, having the guide who can nurture you through that. And I think you're an extraordinary guide in that. So thank you.
Mm, thank you. Thank
Mhm.
you.
So, is this a good place to end, or what would you like to, let's see, I think.
Is there any other questions? Because I can't see the dialogue box.
I don't see any. There's a little bit of a delay in the chat box, but right now, as we've been talking, there isn't any. But I know people are still on watching, so we'll give it just a couple more minutes and let you know if you want to say thank you, or um, any ahas you took away from today. It would be a great idea to put that in the chat box now.
Yeah, I would love to hear people's ahas. And, you're welcome to call me, 619-787-8750. If you just, want to talk about it, what your next steps would be, or some question that you wouldn't want to ask here, you're welcome to give me a call. I've got your chart now, so when I answer your question, I'll answer your question based on your design and not the whole audience.
And I put your details back up on the screen for people, the phone number, email, the link, and the code. I see something we didn't mention, that this offer is good, the special offer with the $50 off and the special Living Human Design Starter Kit, which I think kind of reviews everything we've said here today, and overviews and writing all the pieces about the different types through June 23rd, which is a week from Tuesday, right?
Yeah, a week from Tuesday. Yeah, there's some
Yesterday.
great graphics that go with the starter kit. I mean, you would really want to have those graphics, even if you don't want to study the in-depth, learning just the energy centers and a lot of keynotes for the different types, so you start to understand, your projector or your reflector or whatever. It's really easy to follow through the materials and learn about your chart or someone else's chart.
Wonderful. Well, this was very juicy, as I just put in the chat box. And thank you for being here. Thanking everyone for being here. And because I just have to say, because of our human designs, ReGina, if their energy wasn't here, we wouldn't be here. Is that right?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Laura, for this. You're such a generous host and so professional. I just love being able to play with you.
It's great
We
to play
bounce,
with each other's energies. It's great.
yeah, we get to bounce the sacral generator ball back and forth. It's really, really very satisfying for me. I feel very pleased and very satisfied. So it's
I
been
do
a
too.
successful, it's been a successful gathering. I feel satisfied. Do you feel satisfied?
I do. I just want everyone to take advantage of your custom information, customized, intuitive downloads and ways of coaching. You just get it, and give people access to so much more of themselves. So I'm just hoping everybody gets that energy from us and can use it. And if you have to sit with it for 24 hours, you do have until the 23rd to take advantage of this. But if you're one of those sacral people, just listen to that, right?
Exactly.
You'll get better at
Exactly.
it too.
Exactly. The more you do it, the better it gets.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Zach saying thank you for the webinar, and thank you for being here. So we will see you on the web. Feel free to be in touch with me. I'm at Coach Laura on Twitter. And, you can see my website here, Transform Today, if you need anything in the meantime. But again, Regina, you rock, and we will see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.